Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about one of the most hyped trilogy, the first book in one of the most hyped trilogies going on at the moment, and that's Empire of the Vampire by Kristoff. And honestly, I can see why it's hyped. I can genuinely see why it's hyped. Kristoff mixes a few different things together to create a very engaging, a very entertaining, a very compelling story that hits all the right notes to most people. Um, and this story essentially follows the infamous Gabriel de Leon, who's a chevalier. Um, he's a silver saint, and he's also a half breed vampire. So quite a few, just off of those three words, you can tell there's quite a few different things to unpack. Um, anyway, so what is the basic gist of this story? It's nearly 3 decades since the sun stopped shining on the world. The world was plunged into eternal night, and vampires have pretty much taken over. Um, what's left of what's left of humanity survives in essentially pockets, and at the order of the Forever Empress, a vampire historian sits down to get to record the life of Gabriel de Leon, who is the man who killed the Forever Emperor. Um, record his life from his own in his own words, and through this record, we find out some of the why his life is even of note. Like, he's the man who killed the Forever Emperor, and in addition to that, most tantalizingly, he's the man who held humanity's last hope in his hands and lost it. So, like, you're hooked pretty much early on to all of this stuff, and it kind of snowballs from there. So what Kristoff does is he takes the Name of the Wind format that Patrick Rothfuss made famous with the whole person narrating their story life, and he does a few different things with it. He actually gives it more of a blood song treatment. So our main character, instead of being like a random person, he's essentially a soldier from a pseudo-religious military order, and through this particular book, we follow his formative years as a trainee, and and these kind of things. But that's kind of where the similarity ends with those other stories. What we actually get here is a pretty complex story, like revolving around family, love, faith, and loyalty. As over the course of the narrative, like Gabriel will he'll shift, he'll just tell bits and pieces all over the place. So you find out events from different parts of his life and how they play, how they intermingle, how certain events led to things that happened later on, how certain choices eventually played out, and how certain relationships were formed and what they eventually became. Things like that. So the time frame skipping, it serves a purpose essentially. So there's that. Over the course of the book, naturally, like given the whole setup, the setting and everything, we treated to quite a few epic battle scenes and these kind of things. Like we find out about the fights he's been in, the epic adventures surrounding the Holy Grail, the just the cost that he's paid both in family and blood and these kind of things, and the people that he's lost over the course of the years as a silver saint, and all of these things. It's all boiled into here, and on top of that, Gabriel himself he's a swashbuckling. He's a swashbuckling guy. He's got tattoos. He's mysterious. He has like a semi understood power, and that's almost disregarded. Like he has all the makings of a compelling main character, and his story is very engaging to listen to. But like, basic plot aside, Kristoff does something that I really appreciate that I don't see many books of this nature really delve into. Like, religious orders in books are a pretty common thing, but not all of them do what J. Kristoff does, which is to have a main character try to reconcile his faith with the events that he becomes embroiled in. And J. Kristoff doesn't do anything particularly new or inciting in this regard, but he does take the time to do it, to add a little more depth to what's going on, to add a little more context to the situation. which obviously bolsters the characterization and all of that, and it does amplify the story as regard, because through this reconciliation, like Gabriel, he ponders so many things. He ponders things like divine intervention, omniscience. He ponders things like LGBTQ and its place, and all of these things. Like the religion in this world is very much pseudo-Christian. So all the pseudo all the major moral pseudo-Christian all the major moral questions of the modern day Christianity are exactly transposed over to this world, more or less, and they're all unpacked and examined through a variety of different methods over the course of the story. Like Gabriel doesn't just sit and muse on these things. There are situations that arise, or people that come and go in his life that force him to, or events and these kind of things that force him to kind of dive deep into these musings, essentially. So, like, over the course of all that, like, given that this is a world overrun by vampires, humanity are very much on the back foot and that kind of thing, we get, like, it's a story that really lets you look at what it means to be human in this kind of situation, and where does the line stop for most people. Like, how much of their humanity are they willing to sacrifice before they become little better than the creatures that they fight. So it's like, I honestly, given what I've heard about this book going into it, I didn't expect it to be like this kind of meaty, and it added to my enjoyment of it. Especially given what I know about J. Kristoff's previous books. Like, he's not usually the most well, if you just look up Nevernight and you'll get what I mean by that. Anyway, like I said, it was much better than I anticipated. And then we get to the characters themselves and the characterization, and that's when things get a little more generic. Like, we have the glorious love, we have the antagonistic brotherhood, we have the disapproving master, all the usual tropes. Like, nothing new really gets added there, and these kind of form like the nexus of Gabriel's life over the course of his formative years, shaping who he becomes, and shaping who he becomes, and you can see their impact on the decisions that he makes later on in life. How it drastically changes the course of the story as he goes. So, like, reading all of this stuff, learning of his story at this early point, it does pay off. It absolutely does pay off. So there's that. In addition to that, like, given the way that this story operates, it does lay the ground for quite a bit of emotional damage. Because here's the thing: this world is dark and brutal and violent and sadistic, and J. Kristoff wastes no moment. He wastes no opportunity to remind you of just how edgy and dark this world is. Like, you'll have vampires wearing the skin of people, and these kind of things just as a fashion statement, and that sort of thing. Like, it's very it can be kind of on the nose. Like, yeah, we know this is dark, we know this is extreme or whatever, but okay, we get the point. That's kind of how I started to feel after a while, but I can see it working for people who are into, like, the whole into the whole darker side of things. Like, honestly, I think fans of urban fantasy, like the paranormal crowd and so, they'll have a blast at this one, even though it is very much an epic fantasy. Just the portrayal of the vampires in here, it reminds me a lot of their portrayal in those stories, just amplified by the epic fantasy setting. Because of course you can in that kind of setting you can be that much more brutal, because you don't have, like, the civilities of modern society to kind of restrain you, the way that they usually are in modern urban fantasy stories. You get what I'm saying. Anyway, so there's that. But yeah, as to the overall story, it starts as a slow burn, as we have to go through the whole part with Gabriel getting his call to action and learning to become semi-effective and semi-relevant to his team and whatever, and go through all these initial tropey relationships and all of that. But Kristoff keeps it interesting by using the time frame, the ability to skip around in over the time frame of the storytelling. So over the timeline, I should say. So that keeps things a little interesting. In addition to that, aside from the narrative of Gabriel's life, there's still very much the events that are happening at present, with Gabriel narrating the story of his life to the historian. There's a lot of conflict and tension and that kind of thing there. So that kind of helps to break up the story and not keep it from not becoming too dry initially until things really start to ramp up. So there's that. Like yeah, all in all, like I said, I get the hype. It was a pretty good, it was a pretty entertaining read for me. And I guess I'm locked in. I'll be moving on to Empire of the Dam next, and let's see where this train ride goes. And yeah, like, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.